The island of the dolls, Isla de las Muñecas, located in the Xochimilco Canal network in southern Mexico City, is one of the most eerie places in the world. This small island is famous for its thousands of old, damaged dolls hanging from trees, fences, and huts. The dolls, with hollow eyes, broken heads, and decaying bodies, create a ghostly scene, like a toy cemetery in the swamp. According to legend, the island was transformed by Don Julian Santana Barrera, who lived in isolation there from the 1950s. After discovering the drowned body of a little girl in the canal, Don Julian began collecting dolls to appease her spirit, believing she was haunting the island. After his mysterious death in 2001, allegedly by drowning in the exact spot where he found the girl, the island became a magnet for curious tourists and ghost hunters. Yet, chilling tales of dolls moving, whispering, and even opening their eyes have turned Isla de las Muñecas into a symbol of supernatural horror. Terrifying mysteries. The little girl's spirit. Legend says the spirit of the drowned girl still roams the island, her cries echoing at night. Many visitors report hearing whispers or feeling their clothes being tugged as they pass by the dolls. Living dolls. It is said that the dolls on the island can move on their own, turn their heads, open their eyes, or shift positions without being touched. Some claim to have seen them blink or smile in the darkness, that a supernatural curse. Some believe Don Julian accidentally performed a flawed ritual while hanging the dolls, awakening a dark entity tied to the girl's soul. This entity manipulates the dolls, using them to lure and trap anyone who steps foot on the island. Strange phenomena. Visitors have reported malfunctioning electronics, photos capturing shadowy figures, and the unsettling sensation of being watched. Some describe dreams of a little girl leading them into the canal, or the feeling of being choked near the dolls. The series The Curse Beneath the Doll's Shadow follows two main characters, Hana, a Japanese-Mexican journalist, and Kenji, a photographer specializing in haunted places. They travel to Isla de las Muñecas to report on its history and legends, but unintentionally awaken a supernatural entity known as La Sombra, the Shadow, through an ancient doll engraved with mysterious symbols. The series contains 8 episodes, each with 5 chapters, blending supernatural horror, Mexican culture, and deep character conflicts. The Curse Beneath the Doll's Shadow. Episode 1: The Whispering Dolls. Hana, a 29-year-old journalist with black hair tied in a high ponytail, stood on a wooden boat gliding along the Xochimilco Canal, heading toward the island of the dolls. She carried a voice recorder and a notebook, taking notes about the legend of Don Julian for her feature article. Kenji, a 32-year-old photographer, adjusted his camera, his eyes curious but skeptical. "You actually believe in ghosts, Hana?" he asked with a smirk. Hana, who grew up hearing tales of La Llorona from her Mexican mother, shrugged. "I don't believe it, but readers love spooky stories." The boatman, an elderly local man, warned them, "Don't touch the dolls. They don't like strangers." Hana chuckled, assuming it was just a tourist gimmick, but the serious look in his eyes gave her chills. As the boat docked at Isla de las Muñecas, hundreds of dolls hung from the trees, their hollow eyes and decaying bodies greeting them. The air reeked of swamp, and a faint sound of a child crying echoed in the distance. Kenji raised his camera, but the battery suddenly died, despite being fully charged. Hana and Kenji stepped onto the island, sunlight filtering through the hanging dolls, casting dancing shadows on the ground. Hana turned on her recorder, capturing the wind howling through the crumbling huts. "This place feels like a toy cemetery," she said, her voice tinged with unease. Kenji took photos, but the camera kept glitching, and some shots revealed a shadowy figure behind the dolls. Even though no one else was there, they reached an old hut believed to have been Don Julian's home. Inside, shells were filled with dolls, some burned, others missing limbs. Hana felt a sudden chill despite the hot weather. "Do you hear that?" she asked, as a faint whisper came from the corner of the hut. Kenji shook his head, but when he turned back, a small doll on the shelf had turned its head to look straight at them. "What the hell?" he muttered, stepping back. Though afraid, Hana approached to inspect it. The doll had cracked glass, eyes in a strange symbol carved on its chest, a circle with a crescent-like curve. "This isn't just a toy," she whispered, voice trembling. Hana touched the ancient doll, and a cold current rushed through her, as if someone had exhaled on her neck. Her voice recorder switched on by itself, playing the sound of a child crying, mixed with a whisper, "Ayudang, help me, Kenji." Pale-faced, snatched the recorder. "Hana, don't touch it anymore," he shouted, but she had already lifted the doll, feeling it faintly tremble in her hands. Suddenly, the sunlight dimmed, and a thick fog rolled over the island, despite the clear skies. A small figure, resembling a girl in a white dress, flickered between the trees and vanished. Hana shuddered, dropping the doll. "Did you see that?" she asked, heart pounding. Kenji nodded, his eyes wide with panic. "A girl, but there's no one else here." They ran to the dock, but the boat was gone, though the rope was still tied tightly. The boatman had also vanished. Hana looked at the ancient doll now lying on the ground. Its glass eyes briefly gleamed. Night fell, and Hana and Kenji were stranded on the island. They set up a makeshift shelter inside Don Julian's hut, but the sound of a crying child grew louder, as if coming from every single doll. Hana turned on her recorder, capturing a whisper in Old Spanish. "La sangre, llama la sangre." Blood calls to blood. "Kenji, that girl's trying to say something," she whispered, her voice shaking. Kenji reviewed his camera and found a photo taken at dusk showing the girl's shadowy figure standing right behind Hana, though he hadn't seen anyone when he took the shot. "Hana, we did something wrong," he murmured, gripping his pocket knife tightly. A screech came from outside the hut, followed by light footsteps on the ground, like a child's. Hana looked at the ancient doll in the corner and realized the symbol on its chest resembled one found in La Llorona's legend, a mark of a curse. "Soul, I think I've awakened something," she said, terror rising within her. Hana and Kenji discovered an old piece of paper in the hut, Don Julian's note. "The girl does not rest. I hang dolls to appease her, but La Sombra has come. The symbol on the ancient doll is a door." Hana shuddered, realizing the doll was at the center of the curse. As she touched it again, blood oozed from her finger, though she wasn't wounded, and dripped onto the crescent symbol. Suddenly, all the dolls on the island began to shake, as if coming to life. One nearby doll opened its eyes, and the child's cries turned into screams. Kenji pulled Hana outside, but thick fog engulfed them, and the girl's figure appeared again, her eyes a blank white, staring at them. "Ayadame," she whispered, then vanished, leaving behind a doll that fell from a tree, landing right in front of Hana. Hana picked it up, and the crescent symbol on its chest glowed bright red. "We have to find out what La Sombra is," she said, voice firm despite her fear. Kenji nodded, but his eyes flickered with unease, as if he could sense something watching them. Trapped on the island of the dolls, Hana and Kenji realize that the ancient doll bearing the crescent symbol is the key to the curse, linked to the entity known as La Sombra. They decide to search Don Julian's hut for clues, but the child's crying and the doll's movements grow more intense. Hana begins to feel a strange bond with the drowned girl, as if her spirit is calling Hana's blood. A dusty journal reveals that Don Julian had performed a flawed ritual, awakening La Sombra, and Hana might be its next vessel. As the fog thickens and the dolls begin to move, they realize the island does not intend to let them leave. Episode 2: The Cry in the Night. Thick fog surrounded the island of the dolls, blocking the moonlight and preventing Hana and Kenji from leaving. They stood at the dock, where the mooring rope remained tied, but the boat had vanished. "This isn't normal," Kenji said tensely, gripping his pocket knife. Hana, clutching the ancient doll with the crescent symbol, felt it vibrating gently, as if alive. "I think the island doesn't want us to leave," she whispered, looking at the hanging dolls. Their glass eyes glittering in the dark, the child's cry echoed across the island, seeming to come from every doll. Hana turned on her recorder and captured a whisper. "La Sangre, Lama La Sangre. Blood calls to blood." She shivered, remembering Don Julian's note. The symbol on the ancient doll is the door. Kenji checked his camera and found the battery drained again, despite having just replaced it. "We need shelter," he said, pulling Hana back toward Don Julian's hut. As they walked past the hanging dolls, they felt hundreds of eyes watching them. One doll suddenly dropped from a tree in front of Hana's feet, its head turning to stare straight at her. Don Julian's hut was a small wooden cabin filled with rotting dolls stacked on shelves and hanging from the walls. Hana raised her flashlight, its beam landing on distorted doll faces, some burned, others missing limbs. The air reeked of swamp and something foul, like dried blood. "This place feels like a tomb," Kenji whispered, checking the windows, but the thick fog outside obscured everything. Hana found an old wooden box beneath the floor, carved with the same crescent symbol as the ancient doll. Inside, she discovered a bundle of notes written by Don Julian in smudged black ink. "The girl does not rest. I hang dolls, but La Sombra has come. It wants blood." Hana read aloud, heart pounding. "What is La Sombra?" she asked, but Kenji didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on a doll on the shelf whose glass eyes briefly glowed red. Suddenly, a low growl sounded outside the hut, and Hana's flashlight flickered. She turned back to find the ancient doll, in her hands, shaking violently, and blood oozing from her fingertip, soaking into the crescent symbol. Hana dropped the ancient doll, and blood from her finger dripped onto the floor, forming a small crescent-shaped symbol. The dolls in the hut began to tremble, as if awakened. One doll on the shelf turned its head and let out a distorted childlike laugh. "Kenji, did you see that?" Hana cried, backing away. Kenji nodded, gripping his pocket knife, but before he could act, another doll fell from the ceiling, its plastic hand scratching his arm and leaving a red mark. Hana turned on her. "Record her again," and the whispers became clearer. "Ayadame, Sangre, help me. Blood." She looked at the ancient doll now lying on the floor, its glass eyes wide open, staring directly at her. "What does it want from me?" she whispered, feeling a cold breath down her neck. Kenji pulled her outside, but the doll's hanging from the trees began to sway, as if caught in strong wind, though the air was still. A small figure, resembling the girl in the white dress, appeared briefly through the fog, then vanished. Hana felt a strange connection, as if the girl were calling to her. Hana and Kenji returned to the hut, determined to learn more about La Sombra. Hana flipped through Don Julian's notes and found a line. "La Sombra came when I hung the ancient doll. It's not the girl, it's something older living in the canal." She shuddered, realizing the doll might be the vessel for the entity. "Don Julian did something wrong," she said, her voice trembling. Kenji, inspecting the scratch on his arm, began to act strangely. "Hana, do you hear it? Someone's calling me," he whispered, eyes blank. Hana shook his shoulders, but he pushed her away and stepped toward the ancient doll, mumbling, "Blood, it needs blood." Hana recoiled, realizing La Sombra might be controlling Kenji, just as it had controlled Don Julian. She snatched the doll from Kenji's hands, and a child's scream rang out, shaking the hut. The dolls on the shelves all opened their eyes, and the fog outside thickened, as if ready to swallow them. Hana gripped the ancient doll tightly, feeling it grow hot in her hands, as though drawing blood from her wound. Hana found another piece of paper in the wooden box, Don Julian's ritual instructions. "I hung the ancient doll to appease the girl, but the crescent symbol opened the door for La Sombra. Blood is the key." Hana froze, realizing she had activated the ritual with her own blood. She looked at Kenji, now standing motionless, his eyes flickering red. "Kenji, snap out of it," she yelled, but he murmured, "Your blood. La Sombra wants it." Suddenly, the ancient doll shook violently, and the crescent symbol on its chest glowed red. A ghostly figure of the girl appeared in the hut, white eyes wide, pointing at Hana. "Sangre mia, blood mine," she whispered, then vanished. The dolls across the island began to scream, and the hut trembled, as if the island itself was waking up. Hana pulled Kenji outside, but the fog locked them inside a maze of dolls. "We have to figure out what this ritual is," she said, clutching the ancient doll, despite knowing it was the source of the curse. Kenji, briefly regaining clarity, looked at her with concern. "Hana, I saw that girl inside my head." Still trapped in the fog of the island of the dolls, Hana and Kenji realize that the ancient doll is a gateway to La Sombra, a supernatural entity controlling the island. They decide to delve deeper into Don Julian's notes and find an old journal in the hut, revealing that his failed ritual had summoned La Sombra. It also hints that the blood of someone with a spiritual connection, like Hana, with her Mexican roots, might be the key to either appeasing or breaking the curse. But as Hana begins having dreams of the drowned girl and Kenji becomes more manipulated by La Sombra, they understand that the island is turning them into part of the curse. A hidden cellar beneath the hut, mentioned in the journal, becomes their next target, but La Sombra and its living dolls await. Episode 3: The Cursed Cabin. The fog engulfed the island of the dolls, making it impossible for Hana and Kenji to leave Don Julian's cabin. Clutching the ancient doll with the crescent symbol, Hana reopened the wooden box they had found the night before. Inside, she discovered an old leather journal, its cover engraved with a crescent and the handwriting of Don Julian, stained with blotched black ink. "I found the girl in the canal," she read aloud, voice trembling. "She does not rest. I hung dolls, but La Sombra came. It is not the girl. It is something older, something that lives in the dark." Kenji, examining the scratch on his arm from the previous night's doll, frowned. "What is La Sombra? A spirit?" Hana shook her head, flipping the pages. 1. Line read, "The crescent symbol on the ancient doll opens the door for La Sombra. Blood is the key." She shuddered, remembering how her blood had dripped after touching the doll. "I activated it," she whispered. Suddenly, a child's cry rang out outside the cabin, and Kenji's flashlight flickered. A doll on the shelf turned its head, its glass eyes glowing red. "We have to find a way to stop it," Kenji said tensely, though his eyes wavered, as if hearing something unseen. Exhausted, Hana sat on the floor of the cabin, holding the ancient doll. She slipped into a strange dream, standing waist-deep in the freezing waters of the Xochimilco Canal. A little girl in a tattered white dress stood before her, her eyes ghostly white. "Sangre mia, my blood," the girl whispered, pointing at Hana's chest, where the crescent symbol glowed red. Hana felt a sharp sting on her neck, like a needle prick, and blood dripped from a fresh bite mark. She woke up screaming, with Kenji shaking her. "Hana, you were saying something in your sleep." "In Old Spanish," he said, pale-faced. Hana checked her neck and found a small, bright red bite mark, though she had no memory of being hurt. "That girl, what does she want from me?" she asked, her heart pounding. Kenji looked at the ancient doll in her hands, now vibrating slightly, the crescent symbol glowing faintly. The sound of a crying child echoed closer, as if right outside the cabin. Hana turned on her recorder and captured a whisper. "La Sombra, quiere tu sangre." La Sombra wants your blood. She shivered, realizing she might have a spiritual connection to the girl because of her Mexican heritage. Kenji, trying to stay calm, checked the door, but the fog outside formed a solid wall, blocking any escape. "Hana, we need to find a way to neutralize the ancient doll," he said, though his voice trembled and his eyes briefly flashed red. Hana flinched, recalling the journal. La Sombra manipulates those close to the chosen one's blood. "Kenji, are you okay?" she asked, stepping back. Before he could respond, a doll from the shelf lunged at her, its plastic hand scratching her shoulder, leaving a red mark. She screamed and dropped the ancient doll. Other dolls in the cabin began shaking, letting out distorted childlike laughter. Kenji drew his pocket knife and slashed at one, but it turned to dust. only to reassemble. "They're not ordinary dolls," he shouted. Hana picked up the ancient doll again, feeling it heat up, like it was feeding on her wound. Outside the window, the ghostly girl appeared, her white eyes staring in, whispering, "Sangre." Hana slammed the door shut, but the crying persisted, echoing through the very walls. Hana flipped through Don Julian's journal and found a passage. "I tried to appease the girl with a folk ritual, but the ancient doll opened the door for La Sombra. It demands the blood of someone connected to the canal." She shivered, realizing her Mexican roots and spiritual tie to Xochimilco might have made her a target. "Don Julian performed the ritual incorrectly," she whispered. "We have to find a way to fix it." Kenji, eyes still flickering, nodded. "It mentions a secret chamber beneath the cabin. Maybe that's where the ritual happened." They inspected the wooden floor and found a loose plank engraved with the crescent symbol. When Hana touched it, blood from her shoulder wound dripped down, and the plank trembled, as if revealing a hidden path. Suddenly, Kenji collapsed, clutching his head, muttering, "Blood. La Sombra needs blood." Hana pulled him up, but another doll lunged from the shelf, scratching his hand. "Hana, it's inside me," he shouted, his eyes glowing red. She realized La Sombra was now controlling Kenji, just as it once did to Don Julian. Hana pried up the wooden plank, revealing a stone staircase leading into a dark cellar. She helped Kenji, who was fighting the entity's control, and descended. The air was freezing, filled with the scent of damp earth and blood. Hana's flashlight illuminated crescent symbols carved into the walls, some stained red. The ancient doll in her hands vibrated violently, its chest symbol glowing bright red. A child's scream echoed from deep below, and the girl's ghostly figure appeared at the bottom of the stairs, white eyes wide. "Sangre mia," she whispered, pointing at Hana. Kenji, his eyes flickering, raised his knife, but Hana grabbed his hand. "Kenji, fight it," she shouted. He hesitated, trembling, but the doll's voice whispered in both their minds, "Your blood belongs to La Sombra." Hana looked deeper into the cellar and saw a small stone altar engraved with the crescent, seemingly awaiting her blood. She realized this was where Don Julian had performed the ritual, and now La Sombra was summoning her to complete it. Standing before the altar in the secret cellar, Hana and Kenji realized that the ancient doll is the vessel of La Sombra, and Hana's blood, with its spiritual link to Xochimilco, is the key to either completing or breaking the curse. Don Julian's journal reveals that an ancient folk ritual involving blood and a sacred relic might appease La Sombra, but requires sacrifice. As Hana begins to experience vivid dreams of the drowned girl, and Kenji falls deeper under La Sombra's control, they face the growing danger of becoming permanent victims of the island. Another doll hidden in the cellar appears to be the heart of the ritual, but when Hana touches it, La Sombra manifests, plunging them into a battle for survival within the shadows of the island of the dolls. Episode 4: The Girl's Spirit. Hana and Kenji stood in the secret cellar beneath Don Julian's cabin, flashlight beams flickering over the stone altar engraved with the crescent symbol. The ancient doll in Hana's hands vibrated violently, its chest symbol glowing a fierce Red. This place is the ritual's center, Hana whispered, voice trembling as she clutched Don Julian's journal. One line read, "The chosen one's blood will open or seal the door for La Sombra." Kenji, eyes flickering, gripped his pocket knife, the scratch on his hand glowing red. "Hana, I feel it in my head," he said, voice tinged with a strange hiss. Hana stepped back, realizing La Sombra was controlling him. The sound of a child's cry echoed from deep in the cellar, and the figure of the girl in a white dress appeared atop the altar, her eyes ghost white. "Sangre mia, my blood," she whispered, pointing at Hana. Suddenly, the flashlight went dark, plunging them into blackness. Hana felt the bite on her neck sting again, blood trickling as if summoned. "Kenji, we have to find the main doll," she said tensely, but the girl's footsteps grew louder. Hana's flashlight flickered back to life, revealing a stone crevice behind the altar, etched with a crescent. She pried it open and found a larger doll with a tattered white dress and cracked glass eyes, the crescent symbol deeply engraved. "This might be the main doll," she said, but as she touched it, a vivid vision overwhelmed her. She stood waist deep in the Xochimilco Canal. The drowned girl appeared before her, pale and still, whispering, "Your blood is linked to mine." Hana realized that her Mexican ancestry, tied to families once living near Xochimilco, might be connected to the girl or to an ancient marshland ritual. She awoke with a gasp to see Kenji staring at her, eyes flashing red. "Hana, you were speaking like the girl," he whispered. She checked her neck, the bite now swollen and bleeding. "I think I'm the chosen one," she said, voice shaking. Don Julian's journal stated that the blood of someone spiritually linked to Xochimilco could activate or break the ritual. But before she could read further, a deep growl shook the walls. La Sombra was coming. Suddenly, Kenji collapsed, clutching his head and muttering, "Blood. La Sombra needs blood." Hana rushed to help him, but he shoved her away, knife raised. "Run, Hana," he shouted, his voice merging with the entity's growl. She realized La Sombra was controlling him, just as it once did to Don Julian. "Kenji, fight it," she screamed, backing away with the main doll in hand. The dolls hanging outside began to wail, childlike laughter distorting through the stone walls. "Hey!" Small doll leapt from a shelf and clawed Hana's leg, leaving a red gash. She screamed, dropping the journal. The main doll in her hands shook violently, its crescent glowing brighter, as if feeding on her wound. She tried to pull Kenji back, but he lunged with the knife. Hana dodged and fled deeper into the cellar, heart pounding. At the far end, the girl's figure appeared again, whispering, "Sangre mia." Hana realized La Sombra was using Kenji to force her into completing the ritual. Hana hid behind a stone pillar, clutching the main doll. Flipping through the journal, she found a line. "The main doll is La Sombra's vessel. The chosen one's blood opens the door, but a folk ritual can seal it." She remembered her mother's stories of La Llorona, about blood and chants used to calm lost spirits. Before she could act, dolls from the cabin above dropped into the cellar, moving as if alive, surrounding her. Kenji, eyes glowing red, stepped forward, murmuring, "Your blood for La Sombra." Hana screamed, "Kenji, this isn't you." She raised the main doll, and a crimson light burst from the crescent symbol, knocking Kenji to the ground. He regained control briefly, whispering, "Hana, I can't hold it back." The living dolls lunged, plastic hands clawing at Hana. She thrust the main doll into the altar, her blood soaking the crescent. The cellar quaked, and a monstrous scream echoed, as if La Sombra was enraged. A black smoke erupted from the altar, twisting into a tall, vague silhouette with glowing red eyes and a distorted face, like a demonic version of the drowned girl. "Your blood belongs to me," La Sombra roared, shaking the entire chamber. Hana felt the bite on her neck flare, blood flowing heavily as though drawn by the entity. Kenji, weakened but determined, stood between them with his knife. "Hana, run!" he shouted, but black tendrils pulled him into the wall. Hana, clutching the main doll, recited a chant from her mother's memories. "Por la sangre te ato," by blood, I bind you. A white flash burst from the doll, forcing La Sombra back, but it did not vanish. Hana dragged Kenji up the stairs, but the cellar trembled, and the living dolls followed, plastic hands reaching to drag them back. They escaped into the cabin, but La Sombra appeared at the door, eyes blazing. "You cannot escape," it growled, and Hana felt her blood begin to boil. Hana and Kenji, now out of the secret cellar, realize that the main doll is the vessel of La Sombra, and Hana's blood is the key to either sealing or unleashing it. Don Julian's journal describes a folk ritual requiring Hana's blood and an ancient relic, possibly the main doll, to appease La Sombra. But with Hana increasingly haunted by visions of the drowned girl, and Kenji sinking deeper under the entity's control, they face the growing threat of becoming the island's next victims. A new crescent symbol appears on the main doll, suggesting the ritual remains incomplete, and La Sombra is gathering power to drag Hana into the darkness. They must perform the ritual before the island consumes them completely. Episode 5: The Folk Ritual. Hana and Kenji trembled inside Don Julian's cabin, clutching the main doll with the crescent symbol. Thick fog enveloped the island of the dolls, and the sound of crying children from the hanging dolls echoed like a terrifying chorus. Hana flipped through Don Julian's journal and found a passage about the folk ritual. The chosen one's blood, sacrificed upon the main doll, will seal La Sombra, but the price may be the soul of the one who offers it. She shuddered, staring at the bite on her neck, now red and bleeding. "I have to do this," she said, firm but afraid. Kenji, his eyes shifting between humanity and possession, gripped his pocket knife. "Hana, if you die, I can't," he whispered, but his voice was laced with La Sombra's rasp. Hana grabbed his hand, trying to anchor him. "Kenji, we have to try." She placed the main doll on a wooden table in the cabin, pulled a candle from her bag, and began preparing the ritual. But as she lit it, the flame flickered and a child's scream echoed from outside the island. Hana arranged a circle of candles around the main doll, chanting an old incantation from her mother's memories. "Por la sangre te ato," by blood, I bind you. When she sliced her hand, letting the blood drip onto the crescent symbol, a vivid dream invaded her mind. She stood in the black waters of the Xochimilco Canal, chest deep. The drowned girl, in her tattered white dress, held Hana's hand and whispered, "Your blood is mine." Hana felt her blood boil, as if the girl were merging with her. She awoke gasping, seeing Kenji's red glowing eyes watching her. "Hana, you were speaking like the girl," he murmured, gripping his knife tightly. She checked her neck. The bite had expanded, forming a small crescent mark. "I think the girl is part of La Sombra," she said, trembling. The doll's cries grew louder, and the cabin shook as if the island were enraged. Kenji suddenly collapsed, clutching his head. "It wants your blood," he screamed. Hana tried to lift him, but a doll from the shelf lunged, clawing her arm and spilling her blood on the floor. The dolls inside the cabin and across the island began to move, their plastic hands reaching out, glass eyes flashing red. Hana screamed, dodging one that fell from the ceiling and raked her shoulder. "Kenji, they're attacking," she yelled. But Kenji stood still, eyes glowing, murmuring, "Blood. La Sombra needs blood." She realized La Sombra now had complete control over him. Grabbing the main doll, Hana repeated the chant, but the living dolls lunged, clawing at her clothes. One large doll on the wall opened its mouth, letting out a child's shriek. "Sangre." Mia. Panicked, Hana stabbed the main doll into the wooden table, her blood soaking into the crescent. A white flash exploded, pushing the dolls back for a moment, but Kenji lunged, knife raised. "Hana, I can't stop it," he cried, his voice broken. She dodged and tackled him to the floor, trying to keep him conscious. "Kenji, fight it," she screamed, but the doll's screams drowned her voice, and the fog outside thickened, as if trying to swallow the cabin. Despite her wounds, Hana continued the ritual, chanting louder, "Por la sangre, te ado." Blood flowed more freely from her hand, soaking into the main doll, and the crescent symbol blazed. The living dolls froze, but black smoke surged from the floor, condensing into the shape of La Sombra, a towering, ghostly form with a distorted face resembling the drowned girl. "Your blood is mine," it bellowed, its voice shaking the cabin. Kenji, momentarily lucid, charged at La Sombra, his knife slicing through smoke to no effect. "Hana, finish the ritual," he shouted, before the dark tendrils wrapped around him and slammed him into the wall, tears running down her face. Hana cut deeper into her hand, letting blood pour over the main doll. A blinding flash of white erupted, forcing La Sombra to scream, but Hana's strength faded. As if her life was being drained, the dolls across the island fell silent, but La Sombra remained. It chuckled coldly, whispering, "The ritual is not complete." Hana realized that her blood had only weakened the entity, not sealed it. Hana dragged Kenji, now unconscious, out of the cabin, but the fog was too dense to flee the island. Clutching the main doll, she saw the crescent still glowing, as if demanding more blood. Don Julian's journal lay open on the floor, revealing a final page. The main doll is the door. The chosen one's blood must be fully sacrificed to seal La Sombra. She froze, understanding what it meant. Her life may be the price that a child's cry echoed from the canal, and the girl's figure appeared on the dock, her eyes pale white. "Sangre mia," she whispered, then vanished. Hana looked at Kenji, his eyes twitching, as if La Sombra still clung to him. "We have to find the secret cellar again," she said, voice trembling. "Maybe that's where the final ritual must take place." As they returned to the cabin, a large doll dropped from a tree, blocking their path. The crescent on its chest glowed, and La Sombra's roar echoed. "You cannot escape." Hana and Kenji, trapped in the cabin, realized that the folk ritual only weakened La Sombra. It did not seal it. Don Julian's journal suggests that the secret cellar beneath the hut is the site where the final ritual must be performed, requiring the complete sacrifice of Hana's blood. Haunted by dreams of the drowned girl and feeling her blood being manipulated by La Sombra, Hana is running out of time. Kenji, still fighting the entity's influence, grows more unstable. Another doll, hidden in the cellar, may hold the key to completing the ritual, but La Sombra is summoning living dolls and the girl's spirit for a final confrontation. Will Hana be able to seal La Sombra before her blood becomes the key to its release? Episode 6: The Door of Shadows. Trembling inside Don Julian's hut, Hana and Kenji decide to return to the hidden cellar beneath the floorboards in search of the main doll, the vessel of La Sombra. Hana clutches the ancient crescent-marked doll, feeling it vibrate gently, as if calling for her blood. The journal says the ritual must be completed in the cellar, she whispered, checking the bite on her neck, now red, swollen, and bleeding. Kenji, his eyes flickering, gripped his pocket knife, the scratch on, his arm glowing red. "Hana, I'm not sure I can hold it back," he murmured, his voice tinged with the entity's hiss. They pried open the loose plank and descended the stone steps into the cellar. The air was icy, filled with the scent of damp earth and dried blood. Hana's flashlight lit up crescent symbols carved into the walls, some stained as if the blood were still fresh. A child's cry echoed from the depths, and the girl in the white dress appeared momentarily, then vanished. "Sangre mia, my blood," the girl's voice echoed, sending a chill through Hana. They approached the stone altar in the cellar, where the previous main doll still lay, its crescent symbol faintly glowing. Hana opened Don Julian's journal and found a line. "The main doll is the heart of La Sombra, the chosen ones. Blood sacrificed on the altar will seal it, but the cost is the soul." She shivered, realizing the ritual might take her life. While examining the walls, Kenji found a hidden crevice containing another doll, smaller, dressed in a tattered black gown with shattered glass eyes, its crescent symbol carved even deeper. "This is the true main doll," he said, but as he touched it, a wave of cold passed through him, and his eyes glowed red. "Hana, it's calling me," he muttered, gripping his knife. Hana snatched the doll from him, feeling it heat up, drawing blood from the bite on her neck. A vivid vision flooded her mind. The drowned girl stood in the canal, holding Hana's hand and whispering, "Your blood completes me." She awoke screaming to see her blood dripping onto the doll, the crescent, glowing bright red. Though trying to resist, Hana felt her body being controlled. "Sangre mia," she murmured, her hand lifting the true doll toward the altar on its own. Kenji, briefly lucid, pulled her back. "Hana, no," he shouted, but a doll lunged from the wall, slashing his hand and drawing blood. Living dolls from above began pouring into the cellar, their glass eyes glowing red, laughing in distorted children's voices. Shaking, Hana recited the folk incantation. Por la sangre, ti, Otto, by blood I bind you. She sliced her hand, blood dripping onto the true doll. A terrible scream erupted, and the cellar shook. The girl appeared again, eyes ghost white, pointing at Hana. You are mine, she growled, her voice now fused with Las Sombras. Despite his injuries, Kenji slashed at the dolls, but they reformed from dust. Hana, destroy it, he shouted, but his eyes flashed red again, as if La Sombra were reclaiming control. Clutching the true doll, Hana stabbed it into the altar, her blood soaking into the crescent. A flash of white light burst forth, pushing the dolls back, but La Sombra emerged from the black smoke, towering and distorted, its face echoing that of the drowned girl. Your blood belongs to me, it roared, and Hana felt her blood draining through the bite on her neck. Kenji charged at the shadow, his knife slicing through smoke, but it did no harm. Hana, keep going, he cried before the tendrils dragged him down. Tears streaming down her face, Hana chanted louder, her blood flowing faster into the true doll. A blinding white explosion shook the room. La Sombra screamed, but did not vanish. The ritual is not enough, it hissed coldly. Living dolls pounced, clawing at Hana. She dodged and pulled Kenji up, but the cellar shook violently, stones crumbling from the ceiling as if the island itself was trying to bury them. She realized the true doll required more blood, perhaps all of it, to seal La Sombra. Hana, carrying the true doll, dragged Kenji up the stairs. The living dolls chased them, plastic hands reaching. They burst into the hut, but the fog outside still imprisoned them. She looked at the doll, its crescent still glowing, demanding more. We have to go back, she said, voice shaking. The ritual must be finished there. Bleeding, Kenji nodded, but his eyes flickered red. Hana, I don't know how much longer I can resist, he whispered. Hana flipped to the journals. Final page. The true doll is the heart of La Sombra. The chosen one's blood must be fully sacrificed. She shuddered, realizing her life may be the price. The scream echoed from the cellar. On the dock, the girl's spirit reappeared, eyes ghost white. Sangre mia, she whispered before vanishing, leaving a doll falling from a tree to block their path. Though Hana and Kenji escaped the cellar, they realized the ritual was not enough to seal La Sombra. The true doll is the heart of the entity, and Don Julian's journal confirms that Hana's blood, completely sacrificed on the altar, is the only way to seal the curse. Haunted by dreams of the drowned girl, Hana feels her blood no longer belongs to her, while Kenji, fighting La Sombra's grip, is slipping further. A new crescent appears on the doll, and the living dolls prepare for a final assault. They must return to the cellar to complete the ritual, but La Sombra, summoning the girl's spirit and her dolls, is waiting to make Hana its final victim. Episode 7, Blood and Dolls. Hana and Kenji stood inside Don Julian's cabin, thick fog enveloping the island of the dolls. The The crying of children echoed from the hanging dolls like a curse. Hana clutched the main doll, its crescent symbol glowing red and pulsing like it was calling for her blood. She flipped through Don Julian's journal, reading the final line. The blood of the chosen one, fully sacrificed upon the altar, will seal La Sombra, but the soul of the sacrifice will belong to the darkness. I have to do this, Hana said shakily, checking the bite on her neck, now spread into a crescent-shaped mark. Kenji, bleeding from his arm, shook his head. Hana, if you die, it will all be meaningless, he whispered, but his eyes flashed red, a sign of La Sombra's grip. Hana grabbed his hand, trying to pull him away from the entity's control. Kenji, we have to go back to the cellar. It's the only way. They pried open the floorboards and descended the stone staircase into the cold, blood-scented darkness. The cries of a child grew louder, as if the drowned girl were waiting. The secret cellar was pitch black, lit only by Hana's flickering flashlight, illuminating the stone altar marked with the crescent. The main doll trembled in her hands, and the bite on her neck throbbed, bleeding again. This place is the center of the curse, Hana whispered, placing the doll on the altar. She chanted the folk incantation, Por la sangre, te ato. By blood, I bind you. But when she sliced her hand and her blood touched the crescent, the cellar quaked, and stones began falling from the ceiling. Kenji, visibly trembling, raised his knife. Hana, I can hear it. La Sombra, he muttered, his voice laced with hissing. Hana tried to bring him back, but a doll leapt from the wall, slashing her leg and drawing blood. The drowned girl appeared on the altar, ghostly eyes glowing. White. Sangre mia, my blood, she whispered. Hana realized La Sombra was using the girl to manipulate her, just as it had manipulated Kenji. The cries of the dolls from above echoed downward, and Hana felt her blood boiling, as if La Sombra were drinking her life away. Though controlled, Kenji suddenly charged forward, slashing at the attacking dolls. Hana, finish the ritual, he yelled, blood flowing from old wounds. A large doll in a shredded black dress clawed at his chest, knocking him to the ground. Kenji, Hana screamed, rushing to him, but La Sombra materialized from black smoke, tall, distorted, its face echoing the drowned girl's. Your blood is mine, it growled. Kenji, with his last strength, sliced his own hand, letting blood drip onto the altar. He shouted the incantation Hana had taught him. Por la sangre, te ato. A blast of white light erupted, pushing La Sombra back, but black tendrils coiled around him, dragging him into the shadows. Hana, run, he cried before collapsing, his blood pooling around him. Tears streamed down Hana's face. Kenji had sacrificed himself to give her a chance. She grabbed the main doll and chanted louder, her blood soaking the crescent, but La Sombra shrieked, You cannot seal me. Exhausted, Hana thrust the main doll into the altar. Blood from her hand and neck poured onto the crescent, triggering another blinding flash of white light. The living dolls froze, and La Sombra howled, its form partially unraveling. But Hana felt herself weakening, her blood drained. No, I have to finish it, she whispered, repeating the chant. Por la sangre, te ato. The drowned girl reappeared, this time Her glowing white eyes softened. "Free me," the girl whispered, then faded away. The dolls across the island fell silent, but La Sombra, though weakened, still lingered. It laughed coldly. "Your blood is not enough." Hana collapsed, clinging to the doll, realizing the ritual demanded more. Perhaps her very life. As stones rained from the ceiling, Hana dragged Kenji's unconscious body out of the cellar just before it collapsed entirely. She looked at the main doll, the crescent still glowing, still hungry for more blood. Hana and Kenji, battered and bleeding, stumbled out of the hut, but the fog still sealed the island shut. Hana clutched the main doll, feeling it tremble, and the bite on her neck burned, as though La Sombra still clung to her. She opened Don Julian's journal again and found a final note. The final ritual must be performed where the girl died, in the Xochimilco Canal. Hana shuddered. The cellar was not the true place of power. Kenji, barely conscious, squeezed her hand. "Hana, you can't sacrifice yourself," he whispered, blood on his lips. But Hana shook her head. "If I don't, La Sombra won't stop." A child's cry rose from the canal, and the drowned girl appeared, standing on the water, eyes glowing white. "Sangre mia," she whispered before vanishing, leaving behind a doll floating on the canal, its crescent glowing red. Hana looked at Kenji, his eyes flickering, as if La Sombra still lurked within him. "We have to go to the canal," she said firmly, though her heart ached. Exhausted and wounded, Hana and Kenji realized that the final sealing ritual must be performed at the Xochimilco Canal, where the girl drowned and the curse was born. The main doll, the heart of La Sombra, still demands Hana's blood to complete the ritual, but the cost may be her life. Kenji, weakened after his sacrifice, is slipping further into La Sombra's grasp. Though the entity is weakened, it summons the girl's spirit and an army of living dolls to stop them. A new doll, floating on the canal and marked with a glowing crescent, seems to be the final key. But as Hana steps into the water, La Sombra rises, ready to drag her into eternal darkness. Will Hana complete the ritual before becoming its final victim, or will the curse live on in her blood forever? Episode 8: Dawn on the Canal. Supporting the gasping Kenji, Hana led him away from Don Julian's hut toward the dock of the Island of the Dolls. The thick fog remained, but one doll floated on the Xochimilco Canal, its crescent symbol glowing red as if calling out to Hana. She clutched the main doll, feeling it tremble violently, and the bite on her neck throbbed, oozing blood. "The ritual must be completed where the girl died," Hana said shakily, flipping through Don Julian's journal. "The blood of the chosen one, sacrificed at the canal, will seal La Sombra." Kenji, blood streaming from his chest, gripped her hand. "Hana, you can't die," he whispered, but his eyes flashed red, a sign of La Sombra's presence. A child's cry echoed from the water, and the girl in the white dress appeared, standing on the surface, ghostly eyes glowing white. "Sangre mia, my blood," she whispered, then vanished. Hana found a small wooden boat abandoned at the dock, as if the island itself wanted her to go. They boarded, but the dolls hanging from the trees began to tremble, emitting warped cries. Hana paddled to the center of the canal where the glowing red doll floated. She placed the main doll onto the boat's deck, arranged a circle of candles from the hut, and began chanting, "Por la sangre te ato." By blood, I bind you. She sliced her hand, letting her blood drip onto the crescent symbol, but a vivid dream invaded her mind. She stood waist deep in the black waters, the drowned girl holding her hand and whispering, "Your blood completes me." Hana felt her blood boil, as if La Sombra were merging with her. She awoke, panting, and found Kenji watching her, his eyes flickering. "Hana, you were murmuring like the girl," he said nervously. She checked her neck. The bite now spread, glowing like the crescent. "I'm the chosen one," she whispered, realizing her Mexican roots connected her to both the girl and La Sombra. Suddenly, the boat rocked. Dolls floated toward them from the island, glass eyes glowing red. Living dolls lunged onto the boat, clawing at Hana and Kenji. Hana screamed, dodging a large doll in a tattered black dress that slashed her shoulder. Despite his weakness, Kenji raised his pocket knife, slashing at the dolls, but they disintegrated, only to reform. "Hana, finish the ritual," he shouted, blood pouring from his old wounds. A black cloud rose from the canal, forming La Sombra, a towering, distorted figure with the drowned girl's face. "Your blood is mine," it bellowed, tears streaming. Hana stabbed the main doll into the boat's floor, her blood flowing freely onto the crescent. A burst of white light erupted, pushing the dolls back and making La Sombra shriek. Kenji charged into the black cloud, slashing, but it wrapped around him and dragged him beneath the water. "Hana, keep going," he shouted before disappearing, blood spreading across the surface. Devastated, Hana screamed the incantation, "Por la sangre te ato." Blood poured from her neck and hand, soaking the doll, and an explosion of blinding white consumed La Sombra. La Sombra howled as its body unraveled. The dolls fell lifeless into the canal, and the crying stopped. The fog began to lift. Exhausted, Hana collapsed onto the boat, blood still trickling from her neck, but the crescent mark faded. The main doll cracked, its symbol shattering into dust. She pulled Kenji's limp body onto the boat, his heart still beating, but barely. Blood pooled around them. Hana held him tightly, sobbing. "Kenji, you can't die," she whispered. He managed. A faint smile. "You did it, Hana." She looked to the water and saw the drowned girl one final time, her eyes now softened. "Gracias, thank you," the girl whispered before fading into the mist. Hana paddled back toward the dock. As she looked behind, a small doll floated by, the crescent on its chest faint, as if La Sombra hadn't completely disappeared. She shivered. The bite on her neck still throbbed, though it had faded. Dawn broke over the Xochimilco Canal, sunlight piercing the fog, casting golden light over the lifeless dolls on the island. Hana, carrying Kenji, brought him to a hospital in Mexico City, where he was saved, though weak. Back at her apartment, she kept Don Julian's journal and a shard of the main doll. The crescent had faded, but still filled her with unease. She recorded her experience in a notebook, but each night, she dreamt of the drowned girl whispering, "Sangre mia." Checking her reflection, Hana saw the bite mark had healed, but occasionally flashed red. One day, she received an unmarked package. Inside, a scrap of cloth bearing the crescent, just like those seen on the island. Her heart pounded. She slammed the journal shut, hearing faint whispers like wind across the canal. Hana began to wonder, had the curse truly ended, or had she become part of it? Hana tried to return to normal life in Mexico City, but dreams of the drowned girl and whispers from the Xochimilco Canal haunted her. Kenji, though alive, was plagued by strange visions. La Sombra's presence still near. One day, Hana found a small doll in her apartment, its origin unknown. A faint crescent glowed on its chest. The whisper returned to her mind, and the shard of the main doll quivered in her hand. Had La Sombra truly been sealed, or had it merged with Hana's blood, waiting to rise again? Don Julian's journal, now locked away, still called to her. In her dreams, the crescent appeared, leaving one final question. Was the curse of the Island of the Dolls ever truly broken? The story ends here, but the mysteries still linger somewhere out there, hiding in the dark. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you felt a chill down your spine, don't forget to subscribe, turn on the bell, and share this story. We'll meet again in the next night with another mystery. Good night.